Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ninja Sales Meeting. My name is Larry Kendall. I'm the author of Ninja Selling, and I'll be your host for this meeting. And our topic today is fence-sitting buyers. Do you have buyers that really want to buy, but something's holding them back? They want to think about it. They want to sleep on it. You know, all markets are local, and some markets still have what we call a seller's market, where there's multiple offers. Buyers cannot sit around and sit on the fence. They have to make a decision very quickly. But Ninja last year taught in 41 states, so we're pretty familiar with the different markets. And what we're observing in most markets is a rising inventory, which is good news for buyers because they have more choices. But at the same time, there isn't the sense of urgency there. So many times they'll find a home that they really like, but there's something holding them back. And that's the topic of today's meeting. So what we know is this: if they love a home, they really would like to buy that home, but they want to think about it, one of two things is happening with them. Either they're confused or they're afraid. And so what we want to do is help them become clear and become confident. To do that, we need to have a process. And so we're going to walk you through the Ninja process that will help them become clear, become confident. And if they're clear and confident, they'll commit. They'll get off the fence and decide to go forward. Our process really is what I like to call a 3-act play. And you're the director. You control the process. They control the decisions. So what is this 3-act play? Well, Act 1 is the buyer counseling interview. It's a 10-step process. If you want to go deeper on that process, it's documented in detail in the Ninja Selling book. This Act 2 then is actually showing property, and Act 3 is asking soft closing questions, asking for the commitment, and then moving to the final real estate closing. So I'm going to walk you through those 3 acts and give you some tips on things that will help your buyers become clear and confident. So let's talk about Act 1. This is probably the most important act of the 3. And let me show you an example of the power of a great Act 1. This is Chris Doyle. Chris is one of my partners here at the Group Real Estate Company in Fort Collins, Colorado. In 2021, kind of the mother of all sellers markets, if you remember that, most sales involved multiple offers. That year, Chris had 44 buyers that he served. He had 44 buyer sides. And I thought, you know, how many contracts did he have to write in that market to close 44? It would not have surprised me if he wrote 100 contracts in that market to close 44. He actually wrote 49 contracts. The most homes he showed to any one buyer was 4 homes. A lot of that was because of the urgency in the market. But that's an amazing track record, I think. And he says the key to that is his Act 1, the buyer interview. Now, Chris works with a lot of what I call power people, power personalities, CEOs, coaches. And we know about power people, they don't want to sit around and go through Act 1. They want to get to Act 2. Hey, come on, we don't have all day. Let's go look at some houses. How does Chris get them to slow down? Here's his dialogue. If you'll invest an hour with me up front, it will save you days or even weeks on the back end. And more importantly, you're more likely to get the home that you want. Well, what we know about power people is they understand return on investment. And they understand that if I invest an hour up front and it can save me days or weeks on the back end and I can get the house I want, that's probably a pretty good investment. I think that's a great dialogue. Chris also follows what we call the 3 rules of a powerful communication. Rule number 1, showing is better than telling. Stop telling and selling. Instead, show them stuff. Okay? People are very visual. Number 2, asking is better than telling. Probe, ask questions, find out where they are, find out what's going on with them. Let them have time of possession. And 3, it matters who says it. It's best if the client says it, or if an authoritative third party says it, rather than us. And let me give you an example. Maybe you have a fence-sitting buyer and they want to think about it because They say, I'm afraid prices will fall and I'll lose money. Rather than jumping into a discussion about that and trying to convince them that prices aren't going to fall, it matters who says it. Show them some third-party research. I would simply ask this question. Are you familiar with the repeat sale index or the house price index that's published by the federal government? Most people are not familiar with that. You can find it at fha.gov, and it's called House Price Index. And I would show them this chart. This is for the Fort Collins-Loveland Metropolitan Statistical Area. It actually shows what's happened with appreciation over the last 48 years, nearly a half century. The government tracks every house every time it sells, and they calculate the appreciation on that exact house. And then they publish an index for over 300 markets. The market that you're in is probably covered, and you can look it up. Go to fhfa.gov. If you want it formatted in this format, like this bar chart, subscribe to Focus 1ST, focusfirst.com. That's where we get it. So I would just simply ask, have you seen the research on appreciation over the last 48 years? They probably haven't. I would lay this chart in front of them, and I would say, you know what? You're right. Home prices have dropped 0.1% this year so far. So that is a legitimate concern. Let me ask you this. When you look at 48 years of data, most of the time prices go up, and they go up a lot more than they go down. And how many years have they gone down out of the 48? And if you look at it, it's about 7 years. So the risks are more of missing out on prices going up than they are of buying and having prices go down. But let's look at something. There was a 3-year period during what we call the Great Recession, back in 2008-9, that area, where home prices were down for 3 years in a row. Let me ask you this. How long do you plan to stay in this home? Because if you're going to, maybe you're here on a short-term assignment with the university or with the company, and you're only going to be here a year or two, you're right, this might not be a good time to buy. But if you're looking for a home to raise your family and you plan to be there long-term, you know, the longest there's ever been a downturn in our market over the last half century is for 3 years. I would point out one other thing. What was the average appreciation over that 48-year period? Well, it was 5.1%. By the way, that's pretty close to the national average in most all markets. What price range home are you looking for? And they say, around $600,000. Well, 5% of $600,000 is about $30,000 a year of appreciation, is what it's averaged over the last 48 years. That's about $2,500 a month. All at once, they start to think about that. And again, who's saying it? It's an independent, statistical, researched source, okay? It matters who says it. What if you have a buyer that says, well, I believe prices are headed down, and I'm going to wait and buy at the bottom? Well, I would answer that with a couple of things. First of all, I'd ask a question. I'd say, well, tell me more about that. And they say, well, from what I'm reading in the paper, prices are headed down, and I think if I wait another 2 or 3 years, I can buy at the bottom. Well, that may be. Would you like to see the opinion of 100 economists? This is what's called the Home Price Expectation Survey. Fannie Mae surveys 100 economists every quarter, and this is their forecast over the next 5 years. They believe prices have already pretty much hit bottom, and they will start to rise over the next 5 years. Again, it matters who says it. We control the process, they control the decision. So if the buyer still says, well, I want to wait, that's fine. It's their what? It's their decision. Our job is simply to control the process and to present information for them so that they can make a good decision. The other thing that I would ask is, why are you wanting to buy a new home? And they will talk probably about their family. And I would then steer the conversation to lifestyle versus investment. It sounds like you're basically wanting to play the stock market. Prices, I want to buy at the bottom, that type of thing. And that's fine. But let me ask you this. If you wait 3 years to buy, what is the status of your family? Your kids are going to be 3 years older from now. You would have maybe missed the opportunity to have the lifestyle that you wanted. So present to them the idea that in the end, life is about the memories. In the end, we buy houses to live in. They have been a good investment, but be careful about buying a house strictly on an investment. The goal of Act 1 really is to remove the fears so that they have what we call the green light to buy. What are some fears that buyers have? Well, they have a lot of fears, but there's four what we call the greatest fears. One of them is losing out on a property. Again, the sense of urgency isn't there as much in some of the markets, so there's more of a tendency not to worry too much about that. If you're still in a seller's market, that's a big concern. If we sleep on it tonight, it may be gone tomorrow. A bigger concern is, well, maybe there's a better one. We don't want to miss out on anything. And also, we don't want to overpay for it. And a fourth concern is, what if there's something wrong with it? We don't want to buy a lemon. We can pretty much handle the number 4 there, something wrong with it, with an inspection or a homeowner's warranty. The big ones are really missing out on something and paying too much. And so step 5 of our 10-step process in Act 1 is what we call, let's agree on a process so that we can make sure that you don't miss out on anything and you don't pay too much for it. So our goal is to help you find a really great home. At the same time, make sure we don't miss out on anything. At the same time, make sure that we don't pay too much for it. And we have a process that we found that will help you do that. It's called the funnel process. Would you like to see how it works? And their internal dialogue will be, hallelujah, a realtor with a process. We're not going to be on accident with this. And so what I would recommend that you do is take a sheet of paper and draw a funnel. And it's a very simple process. What we're going to do is we're going to put everything in the funnel that might work. So this will be everything that's on the MLS. It will also be new construction, for sale by owners, maybe bank properties if they're there. It'll be in-house listings or off-market properties. We'll put everything in there that we know about. And then what we'll do is we'll put a filter in the funnel and we'll filter out through process of elimination anything that doesn't work. And what's left over might work. And we do it that way so we don't miss anything. And then once we have identified your favorites, maybe your top 4 or 5, I'll do a market analysis on those to make sure the value is there and you don't pay too much. And I would recommend that you draw it. Again, showing is better than what? Showing is better than telling. So you want to, people are very visual. You want to draw this for them. One of the top producers in our company, one of the top producers in the country is Marnie Long. And she swears by step 5, the funnel process. She says, the funnel process has saved me so much time. The buyers get involved in the funnel and it saves them time too. Okay? So you do the funnel and then you ask this question, does this look like a process that will work for you? And again, they're going to say, hallelujah, a realtor with a process. I love it. And what have you done? You've addressed their 2 greatest fears, missing something and paying too much for it. And then you'd say something like this, well, just to give me a feel for where you are in the process on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is you're just getting started. 10 is you'd really like to find a home today. Kind of where would you put yourself? My experience is most people will put themselves somewhere in the middle, a 5, a 6 maybe. And I would say, well, that's great. Tell me more about that. Why do you say you're a 6? Well, because we've done this, this, and this, but we haven't done that, that, and that. Great. All at once, we're starting to get clear. And then nonchalantly just say, well, what would have to happen for you to be a 10? Almost always. The first thing they'll say is, well, we'd have to find the right house. Now we go deeper. Well, tell me about that house. Now they're into it. They're going to describe beds, baths, square footage, price range, neighborhoods, school districts, etc. You're writing like crazy. And this now leads us into the step we call the what's and the whys. What they've just described is what they want. They want so many bedrooms, so many bathrooms, a certain square footage, certain neighborhood, certain price range. That's their what's. And we write those down. But very important, you want to go to the next step. Go back to each thing that they mentioned and ask, why? Why is 4 bedrooms important to you? Why is a 3-car garage important to you, etc.? Because what we know is this: people buy their whys, not their whats. So don't get too hung up on their whats and load into the MLS and you're searching for the whats. Go a step deeper and find out the whys. Here's a good example. A what is a 3-car garage? So you ask, tell me why the 3-car garage is important to you. And they say, well, we need 2 bays for our cars and we need a 3rd bay for storage. They're coming from Arizona, where they don't have a lot of basements. They're coming to Colorado, where we have a lot of basements. Then you could ask the question, well, would a 2-car garage with a basement work for you? And they go, oh yeah, that would work great. We could do the basement, the storage in the basement. And you may discover that they told you they wanted a 3-car garage. If you're spending your time looking for 3-car garage homes, and then you discover that they bought a home with a 2-car garage because they bought their whys. In fact, you've already probably heard, buyers are liars. They're not liars. They're wires. And a lot of realtors don't go deep enough, and they're out showing the whats, but people are buying the whys. So go a step deeper. Okay, now you're ready for Act 2. You're ready to go look at houses. And what you do when you show property is you look for what stage they're in the process. So there's 4 stages they go through. The first stage is curiosity. They've seen it online. Now we're going to go out and look at it. Maybe they step across the threshold. Hey, this looks pretty good. There's some buying signals there. They're interested in the property. The next stage is desire. You can tell they really like it. And the last stage would be then commitment. What stage are they in? What you're looking for is when they're in the desire stage, what we call doing the dance. They're sitting down in the home. They're going through the home more than once. They're taking possession of the home. They're placing furniture, etc. They're asking very specific questions. How much is the HOA? Let's look at the utilities, etc. When they're in the desire stage, it's appropriate now to move to Act 3 and ask some soft closing questions. So, a hard question would be, do you want to buy this house? A soft closing question would be, well, how do you feel about this home? Is it one of your top 3? And if they say, oh, it's one of the top 3, all right, where would it be? Is it number 1, 2, or 3? Oh, it's number 1. It's our favorite. Oh, okay, great. If they say it's their number 1, if they say it's their favorite, go a little deeper. Can you see yourself living in this home? And if they give you a very positive response, oh yeah, this is great. We would love to live in this home. Say, can you see yourself owning this home? And they say yes to that, then it's appropriate to ask if they would like to buy the home. Would you like to write a contract on this home? At that point, sometimes they'll say, well, we love the home, but we need a little bit of time. We want to think about it, or we want to sleep on it overnight. If they say that, they love a home, but they want to think about it, what's going on in their mind? Well, one of 2 things, either confused or what? They're afraid. Now, old school sales tactics said this is called an objection, and we should overcome objections. Well, let me ask you this. Do you like to be overcome? Nobody likes to be overcome. And when you try to overcome somebody, if they're already afraid, it just makes them more afraid. So the ninja approach is we don't overcome objections. We simply help them become more clear. The more clear they become, the less confused they are. The less confused they are, the less afraid they are. So how can we help them become more clear? One of our favorite tools is what we call the pretend contract or the practice contract. This is done in a pretend state. We say, well, if you could wave a magic wand, that means, pretend state. And so here's how that sounds. They say, we want to think about it. And you say, hey, that's great. Absolutely. I want you to feel comfortable with your decision. Let me offer you this. Now, a key word that you'll hear me say repeatedly is the word comfortable. Because if we can help them become comfortable, they're no longer afraid. So absolutely, I want you to feel comfortable with your decision. Let me offer you this. I would take the MLS sheet of the property, flip it over. On the back, I would say, why don't we do this? Let me scratch out the basics of what a contract would look like on this home, and then you can take that home tonight. It'll give you something specific to look at. Would that be helpful? They go, oh yeah, that'd be great. So you flip over the MLS sheet, and on the back, what you're going to do is you're going to list the 5 decision points on a real estate contract. Now, real estate contracts can be from 10 pages to 50 pages, but those 10 to 50 pages of legalese are designed to get the buyer and the seller agreeing on 5 points. We call them the 5 decision points of contract. So again, on my sheet of paper, I would just write down price. So this home is listed at $600,000. How do you feel about that price? Are you comfortable with that price? If you were to buy the home, would you be comfortable at $600,000? And whatever they say, you write that down. If they say, yeah, we're comfortable at $600,000, write down $600,000. If they say, I think we'd be more comfortable at $575,000, write that down. Don't debate with them. You know in your head that $575,000 will probably not buy the house, but at this point, you're just writing down whatever makes them comfortable. You can circle back later and talk about it, okay? So whatever they say, write that down. So let's talk about terms for a moment. I know you were looking at possibly 10% down with a new loan, and you were looking at 20% down with a new loan. How you feeling today? Which way would you probably go? They go, well, we probably would go with the 20% down. Write that down on the paper. If you could wave a magic wand and close and move in whenever you want, when would that be? And they think about it and they say, well, it'd be really great to be in before school starts. Okay, well, that would be the middle part of August. Let's look at a calendar. How about the 12th? How about the 16th? You come up with a date. The listing realtor's done a very nice job. Here's a list on the kitchen counter of what's included and excluded on this home. Let's look at that and see if there's anything on there that you want to change. And they look at it and they say, no, that looks fine with us. Great. And then finally, let's talk about contingencies. Do you want to have an inspection? They go, absolutely. Okay, we'll make it contingent on an inspection. We also need to make it contingent upon getting your loan. So if you don't get the loan, you don't have to buy the house. They go, yes, we want that contingency as well. Any others? No, I think that's about it. Okay, great. Let's just review what we have so far. You're comfortable at $600,000. You'd like to put 20% down and get an 80% loan. You'd like to close on August the 16th. The inclusions and exclusions look good. And we want to make the contract contingent upon an inspection and the loan. Is there anything else? They go, no, that looks good. Does it look good enough that you'd like to go ahead and move forward on it? Here's our experience. 50% of the time they'll say, let's just do it. I feel comfortable, let's do it. What have we done? The reason they're now comfortable is we've taken the big, scary decision of buying a home and we've chunked it down into 5 small decisions, each one of which they got comfortable with. Now they're comfortable with everything. So half the time, that's what they'll say. And now you sit down and you start to draft the contract. If you need to circle back on an item, that's when you can do it. What about the half of the time when they say, you know what, this is really good. I'm a lot more clear now, but I still need some time to think about it. I want to sleep on it. You say, absolutely, because it's what? It's their decision. We're giving them every opportunity to buy this house. We control the process, but they control the decisions. So if they say, I still want to think about it, you say, great. If you have any questions tonight, feel free to give me a call. In the meantime, would you like for me to set up an appointment to take another look tomorrow? My experience is almost always they'll say yes. That would be helpful. That would be great. We'd like to come back and have another look tomorrow. What time would you like to see it? 10 o'clock. Super. I'll set that up. Let me ask you this. When I talk to the realtor and they say they have an offer coming in or there's other action on the property, do you want me to give you a call tonight? If they love the house, they'll say, you bet. Absolutely. Please call us. And you say, well, let me ask you this. If this home sells tonight, will you be okay with that? If they truly love the house, they won't be okay with it. They'll say, no, we don't want to lose this house. You say, okay, well then let's do a couple of things. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and prepare a contract? We'll use an electronic contract. So it's all ready to go. You don't need to sign it until you're comfortable. But if tonight I call you and we find out that there's other action on the property, if you decide you want to go forward, we're ready to go. Also tonight, if you decide you want to go forward, you can call me and we're ready to go. Otherwise, we'll get together tomorrow at 10 o'clock. How does that work for you? Go. I love it. Okay? You've given them every opportunity to buy this home without putting them under pressure. Okay? And you've helped them become clear and confident. So hopefully we've given you some ideas that will help you with your fence-sitting buyers. Let me ask you this final question. In one sentence, what was your best takeaway from this sales meeting? Hopefully there's more than one, but what was your best one? And if you're in a watch party, turn to each other and share what was your best takeaway from today's meeting. We hope to see you again next month. In the meantime, let's thrive, not just survive. Thanks for joining us for the sales meeting on fence-sitting buyers. Larry Kendall saying, have fun, let's make some money, let's help some people on the Ninja